Greetings, booktubers, and welcome to Sunday Comics. Greetings, booktubers. Welcome back to Sunday Comics. Welcome back to a long overdue Sunday Comics. I seem to say that every time I do these videos. These are some of the most fun videos that I do for me. Hopefully you guys enjoy them as well. They're also some of my least watched videos, but I wanted to get this one up. We're doing the Frost Giant's Daughter today. And the reason I'm doing the Frost Giant's Daughter is because 2 weeks ago on Michael K. Vaughan's Epic Comic Book Wednesday, he did the Dark Horse version of the Frost Giant's Daughter from, I think, 2004. Let me quick double check that. Yeah, 2004. And that was the kick in the butt that I needed in order to get my Frost Giant Daughter video up from the Barry Windsor Smith edition from 1972, I think it is. Yep, and that is correct as well. And I was getting all my stuff ready. I was getting ready to do that video. I was gathering all my materials for it. And 2 days after Michael K. Vaughan's excellent video, Stygian Dogs did a video on the new Savage Sword of Conan, Reforged by Titan Comics, where they reprinted the Barry Windsor Smith edition of the Frost Giant's Daughter, except they colorized it differently. They used a more modern colorizing process in order to put the colors in on the old Barry Windsor version of that from 1972. Actually, it's 1971. Is when he did it in black and white. And we'll go into all the variations here shortly. But I didn't want to step on Stygian Dog's toes, so I wanted to give it room, his video room to breathe. So I put it off for a week and a half here. And now we're doing the Frost Giant's Daughter. And this is part one of a two-part video. So today we're just going to bask in the glory that is Barry Windsor Smith's Frost Giant's Daughter. And then about 2 weeks from now, I'm going to do part two of this video. I'll put up part two, which is the hidden origin of the story The Frost Giant's Daughter by Robert E. Howard. And that's going to be a very interesting video. So stay tuned for that one as well. But the Frost Giant's Daughter, let's get into it. So the Frost Giant's Daughter was written by Robert E. Howard all the way back around 1934. He submitted it to Weird Tales like he did most of his stories. And Farnsworth Wright, the editor of Weird Tales, rejected the story. And he rejected it for a specific reason. And that's going to be dealt with in detail. We're going to get down to the weeds on that one in part two of this video in 2 weeks. But Farnsworth Wright rejects it, and it gets rewritten, and he takes out Conan, and he puts in a different hero, and he gets it published in a different magazine with a different hero with a different name. And it's not until 1953 that El Sprague de Camp, the meddler-in-chief, the pastiche, the king of pastiche, comes in, and he actually reprints the Frost Giant's Daughter with Conan in it for the very first time after Robert E. Howard's death, unfortunately. And it's a fantastic story. It's one of his best. Now, the first time that it appears in comics, it appears in 1971 in the pages of Savage Tales. This is Titan Comics' Savage Sword of Conan Omnibus, which also includes those first magazines of Savage Tales, because this is the first appearance of Conan in magazine form, Savage Tales #1 from 1971, and this is the Frost Giant's Daughter with Barry Windsor Smith, and it's in black and white, and it is absolutely magnificent. It's a magnificent comic book rendering here by Barry Windsor Smith in 1971 of one of Robert E. Howard's greatest stories. So that's the first publication of it. There is in Savage Tales. The second publication of it is when it gets reprinted in Conan the Barbarian, issue number 16. And we're going to go through this comic book page by page with the overhead camera so that you guys can revel in all the glory, as I pointed out, and I revel in it myself because this is just a stunningly beautiful comic book here by Barry Windsor Smith. This is from 1972. So they go back, Marvel Comics, they reprint that black and white from Savage Tales #1, and then they color it in. And Barry Windsor Smith adds a cover page because I need a cover to the comic book. And they add in a front page because there's no front page. You just go immediately into that wonderful splash page there in Savage Tales on the Frost Giant's Daughter. In a little bit, I'm going to switch over to the overhead cam, and we're going to go through this, and we're going to show you guys panel by panel this wonderful story here. And it's a rather short story. So this is published in 1972. You got the original publication, in 1971 in Savage Tales. And then in Savage Sword of Conan, #1 in 1974. This magazine right here with this wonderful cover here by Boris Vallejo. It gets reprinted again in its original black and white form. And then the adaptations of it continue in comic book form. From that one, you go on to Conan #2 and Dark Horse Comics, and that's 2004. And then Blaze Comics takes a 3-issue stab at it, and that's in 2020. And then Conan the Barbarian #15 by Titan Comics redoes the story in 2024. I'll have to go over that one as well at some point. And then the last version of it, the one that made me put off this video because Stygian Dogs did his review. And I'll link both Stygian Dogs and Michael K. Vaughan's videos down below. Do yourself a favor, do a giant Frost Giant's Daughter deep dive with me. Check out this video and check out Michael K. Vaughan's and Stygian Dogs. And I think you'll enjoy all of them. But they do Savage Sword of Conan, Titan Comics, Savage Sword of Conan Reforged just came out, and they reprint this one here, this version, but they colorize it with the modern colorizing process. They put modern colors into it. And I'm an old school guy. A little bit of it's going to be nostalgia. I prefer this old 4-step coloring process where you had magenta, cyan, yellow, and black. And those were the only 4 colors that all these colors are made out of. By mixing those colors in a dot matrix, back there in the 1970s, they could produce 64 distinct colors, but they couldn't blend anything. They couldn't get any shade that they wanted like they can today. But the problem with the colorizing process today is that they can't afford the bright, crisp inks, the red hues, the bright blues, the bright yellows. And so you get these comics that they just look kind of drab to me. That's my complaint against the modern colorizing process. But that is, in short, the history of the Frost Giant's Daughter. So now we're going to transition. We're going to get into the meat of it, and I'm going to show you guys the glory that is Barry Windsor Smith's version of the Frost Giant's Daughter in color. All right, here you go. Conan the Barbarian, issue #16 from 1972. You got issue #16 up here. Would have cost you 20 cents off of the magazine rack. And you've got this great cover by Barry Windsor Smith, done a year after he did the original pencil and pen work for the Savage Tales issue that was done in black and white again. And this covers, it's a year later, his artwork form has matured even more, and he's done something different here. He's gone with a very different style, a completely different style than the artwork that's contained within the comic book here. Instead of being line art, what he's done is he's done pointillism. And he's done that pointillism effect, I think, in order to produce this powdery snow effect that he's got going on here. And he's had to continue it on up into these 3 main central figures of the Frost Giants and Conan, because if he had done them in line art form and then done the snow in this pointillism powdery form, it would have just made the figures look like they were on top of and separate from the snow. But by continuing the pointillism effect up into his figures, he blends them into the snow and makes it look like it's all part of the same scene. And it looks just absolutely beautiful here. It's titled Night of the Frost Giants for some reason. Maybe they thought that would sell it better than the Frost Giant's Daughter, I think. But anyway, let's flip it open. And here you've got the opening front page. This had to be added in for this comic book. This version of this comic book here, you don't have this page in Savage Tales #1 because you have to have a front page, which wasn't there for Savage Tales. And frankly, this isn't Barry Windsor Smith's best work. I think this was sort of hastily done in order to throw it in here on top of the comic, and they're just colorizing over his older work. The figures here of Conan and Heimdall, the last of Braggy's Vanir Wolves, and Conan with Wolf Ears, Aesir, Reavers. It's too small. You really can't see what's going on. But then you get this, and it's absolutely magnificent. The colorized version of Barry Windsor Smith's original artwork, and it is just wonderful. Look at these panels up here, these stills of the battle up here. You've got the 40 men, the 80 dead warriors of the Aesir and the Vanir, with the 2 last combatants, Heimdall and Conan, although they've changed the spelling of Heimdall's name here in the comic book from the original story by Robert E. Howard. And this is a great piece of composition by Barry Windsor Smith.
you've got this line in the snow and the dead warriors all coming in like this, and then you've got this embankment of snow on an angle, and it makes a V that takes your eye off the left page over here to Heimdall and Conan and the action on the right page. And then you've got this iceberg-like mountain back here in the background that adds weight and lends weight to Heimdall and Conan on this page. It's absolutely fabulous, and it's executed perfectly. I love these frost-covered mountains of Nordheim in the background and the setting of it, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful page here to start the Frost Giant's Daughter. And so you've got Heimdall here from the Vanguard. You've got Conan, who's representing the Aesir. And Heimdall has said to him on the previous page, "Tell me your name, O man, so I may say to my brothers in Vanaheim, who was the last to fall before the sword of Heimdall, the last of Wulfhere's reavers?" And Conan says, "You will tell your brothers that you met Conan of Samaria, but not in Vanaheim, in Valhalla, which is the mythology of the Aesir." So he's slain Heimdall here, and he's weary with this battle, this big battle that's gone on. He's taken a shot to the skull. His helmet has saved him, but he's staggering around. And here you get this panel where everything starts to dim out as he's losing consciousness. And it's very well done. And now Conan has collapsed in the snow, but a silvery laugh brings him to his senses, and he looks up and he sees this beautiful woman approaching him over the top of the snow, her feet barely touching, barely breaking the hoarfrost over the snow-covered ground, and she's dressed in almost nothing. She only has this gossamer veil wrapped around her, and he's trying to figure out if she's a friend or a foe, and he's looking at her hair because the color of her hair becomes very important to him and the story at this point, because if she is a yellow-haired Aesir, then she's a friend who can take him to her village to help him out. But if she has red hair, then she's with the Vanir, and she'll go back and get her brothers to come out and slay him in his weakened state. And Marvel Comics does a wonderful job here of following the story by Robert E. Howard, and they take Atali, the Frost Giant's daughter, and they make her hair a blend of red and yellow, this golden hue, just like it is in the story. And it's important because Conan looks up at it, and he can't figure out if she is Vanir or Aesir. Her hair is just golden. It's reflecting all of these fine gold and red and yellow hues, and it's important to the story. And it's interesting because in Titan Comics, a recolorization of this exact issue of the comic here of Barry Windsor Smith's work in their Savage Sword of Conan Reforged, they take Atali's hair and they make it flat red. And by making it flat red, they lose that aspect of the story. And here in the 1972 version, they keep that in there, and it makes it better in some respects to Titan's recent colorized version. But he looks up at her and he says, "You know my name, it seems, but I cannot tell if you are friend or Vanir foe," again referring to her hair. He goes, "I've never seen a woman like you. Your locks blind me with their brightness, by Yimmer." He says, "Who are you, Outlander, to swear by the gods of ice and snow?" And then she taunts him. And here's sort of the famous panel that gets sanitized, it gets censored here in the 1972 comic, this issue. In the original, this is uncensored, and it's not that big a deal. There's not that much to censor, to be honest. But a lot of people seem to get up in arms over this censorship right here. And she says, "Look upon me, my golden tresses, my lips, these ice-pale lips. Am I beautiful? Am I not beautiful, oh man?" And you get this great line by Robert E. Howard that they preserve here in the comic book with Roy Thomas doing the adaptation. "Like dawn running naked on the snows." What a wonderful line. And you have this panel here by Barry Windsor Smith that is just beautiful. All the detail, all the lines of the hair, the expression on Conan's face, it is perfect. And here I'm going to bring up a point. Barry Windsor Smith was, in my opinion, the perfect artist to render the young Conan, the teenage Conan, before he had fully matured into a man. And he was rendered it in just a perfect form. I love his way that he drew Conan as a youthful man. And then he leaves the comic book and John Buscema comes on, Big John Buscema. And Big John Buscema is the perfect artist to draw the mature Conan. But here you still have the youthful Conan, and Barry Windsor Smith just nails it. And she says, "Then why do you not rise and pursue me? Ha, lie down and die in the snow with the other fools, Conan of the black hair. You cannot follow where I would lead." And she's taunting him. And again, we're going to get into this story here and much more depth in the second episode of this video. And Conan gets up and begins pursuing her across this frozen wasteland. Oh, jumped ahead a little bit. So she's running and laughing. She's having a great time. Her feet are barely touching the snow, and Conan is sinking in almost down to his waist. He's coming through here like a 800-pound gorilla, just crashing through everything, snow going everywhere, making these great troughs of snow with his legs, coming after her. And she's just lightly dancing on top of the snows. And he goes, "I will follow you to hell." And Atali turns around and says, "You need not pursue me much longer, barbarian. No, not much longer at all." And her face and her expression, the half smile on her lips here, is absolutely perfect by Barry Windsor Smith. And again, you get the red and the yellow and the gold blending in her hair, and it's absolutely wonderfully done. And then you cut to this power shot of Conan. He's charging up the hill here, pursuing Atali, his legs driving like pistons, just plowing into the snow. He's just a force of nature, and he runs smack into the frost giants. And Atali says, "Brothers, look who follows. I have brought you a man to slay. Take his heart that we may lay it smoking on our father's table." And what a great line right out of the book by Robert E. Howard, and a great panel here by Barry Windsor Smith. And then you get this panel over here. It's another close-up shot of two faces. You've got the frost giants with Barry Windsor Smith, and you're looking up like you're Conan, looking up from below at the frost giants, and the frost giants are just done perfectly. I love how their eyebrows and their beard and all the hair on their face just looks like hoarfrost crystals coming out. It's perfectly and wonderfully done by Barry Windsor Smith. And the colorized version, adding the gold into the helmets, does add something to the comic here. And the inevitable fight between Conan and the frost giants now ensues. And Conan immediately kills one of them, and you see a look of concern come across the face of Atali. And she says, "Kill him, my brother," to the last one. "He is only flesh and blood. Kill him." And then Conan, of course, just puts his sword right through the heart of the last frost giant. And then he turns to Atali, and look at this great panel over here by Barry Windsor Smith. Look at the hand over here that looks like he just wants to grip Atali's heart and rip it right out of her chest. And his expressions, he looks over at Atali, who now has this expression on her face of shock. And he says, "Call the rest of your brothers, wench. I'll give their hearts to the wolves." And this may be the best line out of the story by Robert E. Howard, and it is perfectly executed by Barry Windsor Smith here in issue 16 of Conan the Barbarian. And now she starts taking off and running with effort now, running as if her life depends upon it. And Conan looks over at her and says, "You cannot escape me." And then he takes after her with all of his grace or lack thereof. He's just forcing great big plows of snow as he's sliding down through the snow after her as she's running with effort to get away from him. But he catches her right here. And what another wonderful panel. Look at how Atali stretches back. He's got her arm, he's pulling her back, and he's bending her over. And it's just wonderfully executed. And here in the color version, you've got the solid black in the background, and then the colors just pop it up off of that background with Conan's hand here. And then Barry Windsor Smith adds in the details of his rent chainmail from the battle covering the hand. And then you have the billows of snow down here at the bottom of it. It is a perfect panel. And then you go from that perfect panel to another perfect panel, another close-up of two headshots of Conan and Atali. But he's canted the heads, he's put them on an angle, and it adds energy to what otherwise would be a static scene. And again, you have the red and gold hair, the red and yellow tresses, and the expression on Atali's face and Conan's is absolutely wonderful and perfect for this scene. So Conan tries to pull Atali into her, but she manages to break free. She runs over, and he yells, "The witch fires in the sky writhe ever more wildly like living things, but no mere blazing lights will keep me from..." And then Atali goes down on her knees, raises her arms up in supplication to the sky, and shouts, "Ymir, oh my father, save me." And at this point, it begins to sink in through Conan's thick skull, just the level of effrontery he may have caused, the grievousness of the transgression that he has committed. And he's starting to become concerned. And again, you have this great angle. looking up here by Barry Windsor Smith, you have sort of what's called a worm's eye view with the hands extended down. I love the hands. And then you look up through across his face as he looks up into the sky and is concerned here that he may have bitten off more than he can chew. And then a bolt of pure energy comes down, a blue flame. It envelops Atali and then draws her up as a pure energy form up into the sky, up into the land of the giants, up into the land of the gods, and Ymir, the frost giant. And then the world literally turns upside down under Conan's feet. The mountains upheave, the hills upheave, and it just encircles him, and he falls down into unconsciousness. And here on this page, the color version does outstrip the black and white version. And many of the pages, I actually like the black and white version from 1971 better, but the color version here really has the effect of bringing out that otherworldly, godlike realm. You've got like the northern lights, but in reds going up on this side over here. You've got that solid black with the color to pop Conan up off of the black with Atali shooting up into the sky. You've got these great swirls of color here that just give you this sorcerous, a magical, godly feel to it. And this page really, really works well in the color version. And Conan collapses, and then some unknown amount of time later, the last of Wulfhere's Reavers find him, except I think they renamed Wulfhere to Njord in here. And Njord and his slayers, they find Conan, they revive him, they pick him up, and Conan tells them this story about this girl, and they think he's all crazy. He's been hit in the head. He took that blow from Heimdall in the battle, and he's crazy. And then finally, one of the older warriors, Gorm, speaks up and he says, no, he's not crazy. I too was wounded upon a battlefield when Atali came to me and tried to taunt me, but I could only crawl after her because my leg was bleeding and wounded and wrecked, and he couldn't pursue her into the wastes, and that Conan isn't crazy. And they're saying, you're both crazy. But then Conan holds up in his hand, and he has the gossamer thread. He has the gossamer veil that was wrapped around Atali, that he's pulled off her there when he finally caught her. That gossamer veil that no human hand in the Hyborian age could have woven, and he knows that it was real. And that's where the story ends. And this is another beautiful panel, beautiful face shot here by Barry Windsor Smith. I love the old Gorm as he's leaning on his spear over here. And then the hand here with the bracelet with the gossamer veil inside of Conan's grasp here for the final panel. It's a perfect rendering of an almost perfect, I'm just going to call it a perfect story, a perfect sword and sorcery story by Barry Windsor Smith and Robert E. Howard, a perfect blending of those two talents. And then they tack on here, because this is so short, they tack on another story onto the back of the comic book that is also by Barry Windsor Smith, but it's by Barry Windsor Smith before Marvel had the rights to Conan the Barbarian, and they were still trying to do a sword and sorcery hero that they wanted to launch. And you can see this is almost 2 years prior to this work here. You can see where Barry Windsor Smith was 100% a Jack Kirby clone at this point in his career, before he had progressed to where he's very good. He's coming into his own. He hasn't exactly hit the peak of his work here with Marvel Comics in the 1970s. That doesn't come until a couple of issues later, until you hit issues about 18 to 20s, where he really hits the absolute peak of his powers. But here is even earlier. This is prior to Marvel Comics having the rights to Conan the Barbarian. This is the story, The Sword and the Sorcerers. It's by what Stan Lee presents with Roy Thomas as the writer and Barry Windsor Smith. And you can see that he's drawing this hero here, who is Star the Slayer, exactly like Conan. He has all the same accoutrements of Conan, the helmet, the necklace, the same sandal straps on him. But he's drawing exactly like a Jack Kirby clone. The shape of the leg right here, from the calf to the knee, up to the thigh, this is 100% Jack Kirby. This straps here, it's 100% Jack Kirby. All of these wavy lines with the inks to denote musculature and to give mass to the leg, that's pure Jack Kirby. This arm is 100% Jack Kirby. And the monster is an early Jack Kirby monster. It is absolutely Jack Kirby that he's got going on here, but not nearly as well as Jack Kirby could. Because despite the deceptively simple style that Jack Kirby apparently developed, apparently as in simple, it was actually very difficult to get right. It was a very simple way in order to render muscles, in order to render action, but you had to be an absolute genius to make it pop in the way that Jack Kirby could. And a lot of people who tried to copy Jack Kirby, almost nobody could get it the same way that he did. And Barry Windsor Smith is trying here. He's got an effective page, but it's not Jack Kirby. And thankfully, he moves away from that. But let me show you two more panels here that really bring that home. This panel here and this panel right here are just lifted straight out of Journey into Mystery, Thor with Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. These are absolutely panels right out of Journey into Mystery with Thor. That is a Thor panel with a Loki-type helmet on it here. And this is 100% Thor throwing the mallet Mjolnir, the magical mallet, except Barry Windsor Smith hasn't thrown the sword. And it just illustrates how much of a Jack Kirby clone Barry Windsor Smith was when he first started with Marvel. And then you compare that to this just about 2 years later, where he's developed his own style, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's different from Jack Kirby, but it's every bit as beautiful. It's every bit as impactful as Jack Kirby's, and it's all his own. And it really illustrates why Barry Windsor Smith was one of the best people to illustrate Conan, ever to pick up a pen and pencil and do Conan the Barbarian. And that's The Frost Giant's Daughter. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. And with that, I'm going to say, take care, be safe, and I'll catch you guys next time.